Hello everyone, today I am sharing my work on Orion Evertone, a game project I spent 9 months of working on it. Unfortunately, we had to scrap it before releasing the Steam demo due to the issues with our boss. The game was similar to Disco Elysium, focusing on dialogue, investigation, and roleplay. You interacted with civilians and suspects to solve crimes, making choices that impacted the story. I added timestamps in the description, so feel free to skip any section you would like to see. Let's get into the video. Backgrounds. The first background is Anna's clothing store. While Anna is not a major character, she is a key part of the story, being the best friend of a really major suspect. I'll be showing both unfinished and final versions of the artworks to demonstrate my workflow and see how it looks before and after. Now moving on to the second frame, we can see the lighting is much more dramatic and the focus is on Anna. I prioritize storytelling through the objects such as photos with Susan, magazine posters, and from this background you can understand Anna is really dedicated to her work, but she's not great at organizing stuff cause the room is quite messy. Next we have a coffee shop, which doesn't play a significant role in the story. I added a black foreground objects to give a scene depth. As you can see here, we have all these silhouettes, but we have a rough idea what are they. Like you can see, these are some objects that are really familiar to us, and given the context it's a coffee shop, you can understand what are they. This is something I often do on background art, both to save time and give it a unique look with depth into it. Now what will you realize in this video? I always have these backgrounds as layered. I do this because that's how you implement work on game projects. If I had it like this on one layer, it will be useless, but with layering it like this, we can use these objects on somewhere else, which saves a lot of time, and maybe game designer want this object bigger. That's why none of the objects here are touching each other, and you will see on this video all of my works are organized like this. This is Isabel's living room. She is the main victim of the first case. She gets murdered, so we are trying to solve her murder and trying to understand who killed her. As you can see, there's not much to talk about here. I will be skipping some backgrounds quickly cause there are a lot of work here, as you can see, and not all of them necessarily demands commentary on it. Here is Orion's room at the police station. Here's our main character, so this is our actually investigation room, which reflects his chaotic personality. There are alcohol bottles on the ground, showing his nature as an alcoholic police officer. It is similar to the Anna's working shop, and it's a pattern on the characters who are really dedicated to their craft. I just wanted to highlight those kind of people, in fact quite messy when it comes to the other subjects in life. Again, there's nothing much to comment about here, so I will skip this one. This is the room of our captain, the police chief. It was actually inspired by Captain Holt's office from Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I didn't draw this background, but made some perspective fixes like here and there, and improved some elements. This is Richard's living room. He is the guy who gets framed for the first murder on the game and gets in the prison, and we are investigating his house. I didn't draw this one either. Like I said, I wasn't the only artist who worked on this project, so if I mention that I didn't draw this one, it means that I probably supervised this background, made some changes, improvements, but initially it was drawn by someone else. And this is one of the rooms where I added quite a lot of stuff, like his portrait, his wife's portrait, his TV on the foreground, some of these posters, and you can see poster here is actually the same poster on Orion's room. So why did I use the same poster? The reason is simple, not just because I like to save time, which is a valid reason. This poster here is in fact real, and you can see on other people's house and not just specific to one location, which makes the player think this world is actually living and a breathing world. Now moving on to next backgrounds, this is the theater restroom where I used foreground to convey perspective. Even though we don't see the taps, the silhouette suggests it's a hand washing area, We have women's dressing room in the theater with clothes and posters on the wall. There's not much to comment about it. It's a standard dressing room. The game takes place in 30s or 40s, so it's designed accordingly to it. That's why you can see with all these brick walls and stuff like that. And this is the men's dressing room. We have more stuff in it cause there are more men's in the theater as actors than women's, so it makes sense there will be more stuff around. This is actually a copy of the women's dressing room, but changing stuff like where's the restroom, the posters and the objects, you can see player will never realize it is basically the same room. This is Isabel's kitchen. As you can see, I sometimes like to break this shadow silhouette, and you might ask why some backgrounds has this darkness into it. It was a stylistic choice. We did not want player to see whole background, so we added like this black filter, which makes the game more memorable while also saving us a lot of time. Like I could make maybe a lot bigger background with less details, but I like to focus on small things like storytelling and objects while keeping the background small but memorable. That's why we have this foreground objects that breaks that illusion. By adding some stuff to foreground, you can see it's not always like this linear black line that covers whole area. This is the entrance of Isabel's house. There's nothing much to add to it, so we will be moving on to the next one. And this is the entrance to the police station. It was actually inspired by Resident Evil 2's police station entrance, so you can see the dual ladders. And there are some stuff like computer, chairs, but not that much objects. The reason is, if I fill this place with tons of objects, it wouldn't make sense, cause there will be no place for people to walk on. And this is the first sketch of the police station. You can see the perspective and the floor marbles are way rough on this one, and it's a bit smaller. We use same background on different places cause we really wanted to save time, so it's same background with different assets. As you can see, now it's the entrance, now it's the living room, and now it's the bedroom. Now we will see what is this later on the video, but it's basically an inspection mode where the mechanic of the games change and you can see the game from bird view perspective. It's actually the first sketch of the idea we did on the game. It looks much different on the gameplay, and I will be showing you guys how it looks later on. Now this is like a hub area for the police station where you could find most of the police officers and NPCs and earn some info around them. I did not create this background from scratch, but I changed quite a lot of stuff like this world map on the background, these pillars, this foreground stuff, and added some story elements by adding the posters of some police officers. I probably changed some perspective mistakes in this one too. This is meeting room for the police officers. I did not change this background drastically, but if I remember right, I changed order of some of the seats to give it more natural feeling. I also added some stuff like some little details like plants, a clock, also some snacks, food and papers to make it more believable. This is in fact a police officer's meeting room. This is Isabel's bedroom. If I remember right, it wasn't done by me, but I remade all the objects to the point where I probably made most of the stuff from scratch. I rarely do that in projects where I completely change an artist's work, but if I do that, I always keep their versions of the assets to use it later on other parts of the game to save time, so it's not waste of resources. This is Jackson's living room. He is one of the main suspects of the game. If I remember right, I almost added nothing to this piece, so it's not done by me at all. I only probably supervised on some proportions and gave feedback, and that's all. Well, moving on to his entrance of the house, I added some stuff here, like this foreground element as always. Probably moved this from here to here, added his own bronze statue cause he's quite an egotistical guy, and added his posture here to convey this more. Now this is the entrance of the theater. Again, it's one of the rare cases where I remade whole scene cause it was not matching the perspective I had in mind, so I added some snack bars here and there. and showed where we'll be going when we are here to the background by opening an extra room of door here to convey the feeling that these two places are connected. Again, I remade whole scene from scratch. This is actually one of the backgrounds I spent most time on it, cause it was really far away from what I imagined, where I added some statues, ceiling painting, and the seats you can see are in perspective. One of the things I again really pay attention to is we will be moving on to here after getting down on the stairs, which is something actually you can do in the gameplay. I wanted to show the player that it is a place that we will be visiting next, and you can see it from here, which makes the connection between the backgrounds, making it feel more alive. Now moving from backgrounds, I will be showing the characters in order and other stuff on the game I have worked on. We have quite a lot of characters, around 43 of them to be exact, each of them having a unique look and feeling into it. I always do the in-game character models by myself. The reason is that it requires some experience, it has to fit the scale and style of the game, and it is quite necessary to still make them look unique while having a really little space, so that's why I always make them by myself. So all of the character works here were completely done by me. This is Anna, and I remade some stuff on her design. This is her final design. Before, she did not have that needle on her arm or stuff like measuring tape on her body, so I added those stuff to convey she's in fact a tailor. I will be skipping some characters really quickly because there are a lot of them. You can see we also have some enable characters you can interact in the game, so they are quite small. I sometimes have different poses of the same character. In here he is standing, as sometimes we need same character on different positions, so it's quite necessary. These two are actually the same character with different makeup, clothes on, so I wanted to convey the feeling that she is actually much more confident when she is looking good, and to do that I desaturated her colors on this pose and made her look a bit more grumpy, where here she looks way more colorful, has a way better posture. Okay, so this is Frankie, if I remember right, and the reason Frankie has such drastic differences in his poses, a police station has a lot of people working on it, and we did not have time to convey each of them differently because it's a game project and we have to save time. So I created Frankie to fill 4 or 5 different jobs and positions where it added comedic value to the game, because it's quite funny the same guy works on so many different jobs while also saving us time. That's why you can see he has different clothes, but he is completely the same person. So this is actually Isabel. You can see her in the game because she is already dead, but I made her model in the theater, both as a reference and for the fact that we might have needed her for a flashback scene, so I made her design just in case. Again, this is actually Isabel with no costume on it. We never see her in the game, but I still added her. It was a good idea to make her design cause we have her photos and stuff like that in the game, so it was easier to take a reference when looking at her face. It saved time when making stuff like that. As you can see, some characters have really different body types and shapes, where Jackson is way more square cause shows his character, where this guy has a really different body type, and you can see Jean has a different body type. I always try to convey the characters by having different body types, postures, and expressions, and even color palettes. I normally use per 36 color palette from the low spec on this project, but sometimes I saturate them, desaturate them to convey through their clothes, body type, and everything in the in-game model to make player understand what kind of person he is and what he is thinking. That's why I always make those in-game models by myself, because it's really important, and I just think it has to be done by one person to make it consistent. Now let's move on to the idle animations. Not all of them are finished because we stopped working on the project before completing everything. On average, an idle animation takes around 3 to 10 minutes, and finishing a character, including the idle animation, takes about 30 minutes. However, depending on the character, as you can see, we have many different types of characters. It might take longer, around 1 to 2 hours, cause some characters are harder to draw, and also we have to include the fact that after drawing, let's say 20 or 30 characters, it's harder to come up with new characters, poses and body types and expression. I always like to play with hair on idle animation, give some life to character. You can see here, the style is real cartoonish, so I like to play with the character idols as much as I can. I don't do this on all game projects, but I did it on this one. Now we have some unused cutscenes for the game. It was supposed to play at the beginning of the game, where the two officers are talking about you. I actually ended up using this hi-fi animation on different places, cause otherwise it will be quite wasteful. Now these are the turnarounds of Mustafa and Daniel. The reason I did that, cause it's way harder to do animation for them compared to the other characters. It also saves time and resource, because it's easier to make animations when we have character turnarounds. And now we are moving on to animations of the Orion, which is ironically more than all the other characters combined together, because Orion is our main character and it has a lot of animation, especially idle animation, so I ended up adding a lot of animations to Orion. It's his standard idle animation. He's yawning here, stepping on the ground, checking the time. You can see some frames stay longer. You always have to say this to the developer, cause let's say if I did not tell him this frame, yeah, it's supposed to be 5 times longer than the other frames, he will not know this and add it to the game like this, which ruins the whole scene. That's why you always have to tell your developer that some frames need different timing and frame rate, otherwise they will not put it in the game the way you want it to. Here he drinks some alcohol. He is alerted here. Checks his notes. So this is a special animation that gets played only before smoking cigarette animation. All the other idols are random, but this animation plays out by him taking out his cigarette, but it's actually a note that he just checked before, so he accidentally takes his notes, then puts it back into place and takes out his actual cigarettes. He tries to light the fire a few times, then smokes, takes a few sips and throws it away. He picks up his nose and takes some booger out, quite disgusting, sleeps, and dreams of eating a hamburger. This is the animation that specifically plays when you try to reach a door. If the door is not directly in front of you, he will walk across like this to make it more believable. And this is the animation where he plays the door is directly in front of you. We have 2 different animations for each, so it's more realistic where he walks across like this instead of always walking like this. This is his turnaround animation. It's way more detailed than the police officers. It's around 14 frames, cause I need a more detailed one for the Orion and it saved a lot of time. This is the door opening animation. You can see he gets smaller as he moves into the door to convey the feeling he is going inside. This is the same door animation, but for the doors that are towards us. This is the animation if the door is directly in front of us. It looks quite funny. And this is the walking animation. Now, You might think this animation quite ugly, and in fact it is. You see, it has a lot of weird looking frames. Why I did not bother fixing these frames, cause in context it doesn't make sense. You get this shadow, so player will never realize it looks like this in the game. Let's say player is looking from far away. I did not waste unnecessary time on fixing something unnecessary. This is the way I animate Orion, all the stuff on different layers and different colors, so it's easier to animate. Some people prefer 1 or 2 layers of animation. It saves a lot of time, but it's quite risky, and this is a more time consuming method, but it's way more consistent and quality is way better in my opinion, and I would not suggest doing animation with less than 3 layers. Now we are moving on to UI elements. These are the clues. Clues were a mechanic used in the game where Orion, whenever he finds a clue, will take a photo and add it to his notebook. We also have a bit of lighting coming from here to here to convey the feeling of a photo. This is Isabel. It's actually basically the same game model. Let's check if it's indeed the case. You can see this is exactly the same model, though it's a bit shorter. That's why it's necessary to make the character models even though she's not in the game. As you can see, I used it here to save time. And you can see this is Susan's idol too. I just put the idols together and added some background. One thing I like to do is making close-ups to the same object from different angles to again convey the realism. If you see this object just once, you might think it's just an artwork, but if you see some close-ups of the same clothing with same patterns and as a clue, you will realize this object just not appears on one place. You can actually see the close-ups of it or from far away, which conveys the feeling of realism. Again, same thing, this is the branch and this is the close-up of the same branch. So these are the little clues. What are little clues? So you see, we use these clues and portraits on a pinboard where Orion trying to connect the dots on his mind by using all the clues he has found. But since it has a different scale, we have to use more miniature versions of the clues and portraits. That's why we have the little clues and little portraits fill that gap, and the scale of that pinboard is smaller, so we had to use smaller objects and icons but represent still the same infos about them. Now that's what we were talking about before. In the game, when you press a button, Orion will move on to the inspection mode. And what is inspection mode? It's a mode where basically he sees stuff from a bird's eye perspective and try to connect the clues and find some new info. One thing I paid a lot of attention in this artwork is that the proportions and the places of the object is exactly the same as the normal. You can see all the stuff on her bedroom and the stuff on the bedroom and living room and kitchen is exactly the same. And this is a bird view of the theater. It's much less consistent compared to the Isabel's room because it's way bigger and it has a lot of stuff in it, but it is consistent enough for a player to understand. Now we have this notebook animation where it flops from the air. It's similar to the codex animation of the Enter the Gungeon. And this is the page flip animation. It's quite smooth. And this is how the UI looks. We had some info like his height, body weight, and stuff like that. Most of the portraits besides the main suspects like Tanaka were not done by me, they were done by Hamza, so I will be talking about them briefly. And I actually did this one. This is Tanaka, one of the main suspects. He was really muscular, so I reworked his body portrait few times cause it wasn't like how I wanted to be at the beginning, but this is the final design, it's close to what I imagined. So this is actually the final design of Orion, but we did not have enough time to implement his later design on the game, which I like a lot more than his earlier designs. So these are the little portraits, and you can see we only have 26 of them. And you might ask why we have so little but we have so many characters. Because the little portraits are only here for suspects and some side characters. So people on the police station are not suspects. That's why they don't have little portraits. Now we have name tags. I did not use the name tags only on the notebook. We also use this name tags when we talk a character. Their name tag appears in this style and each character has his own type of name tag. I did all of the name tags by myself. And you might see some name tags are more crazier than the other ones. Not all of the characters are important to the story, where Cody is a hacker, so we have a different name tag for him. If you compare to something like this character, for example, has a really simple name tag compared to the Cody, cause he is a really minor character. Now we have this question mark for the characters who we don't know the name of it. Now, this is the first design of the Orion I was talking about. Let's compare it to the last design. You can see his head looks a lot different, and I think it's actually only the real difference, but it makes a huge difference where this version of it looks way more recognizable and iconic compared to the usual detective head, in my opinion. Now we are moving on to first sketches and designs. Orion looks well different here. This was his first design and the characters were much bigger in the first design. They are unnecessarily large with a lot of details, but it conveys nothing. We scrapped it to make smaller characters with more variation. The one thing I like about this first design is it looks much more action oriented compared to what we ended up with, but the game was not going to introduce that much action elements into it, so we scrapped it. Also, you can see we have these black outlines in the first designs. The reason we don't have that anymore, I thought it would be really cool if we had these shallows like comic book style, but it looked really weird and awful on the gameplay, so we scrapped that too. This is the initial sketch for the theater. The reason we did this is we wanted to be consistent with little plot hole as much as possible, so we were thinking if the bedrooms are here, this character, let's say, walks here. How can he do this? Can he do this? Does it make sense? Where are the other characters at the same time and where do they come from? So we thought about the design and the places of the characters a lot for the story to make sense. This is an unused animation for the Orion. Stuff like dialogue bars, the pinboard and some icons. this is the noteboard I was talking about. You can see that it connects them close together, and we have the little portlets just for this purpose, and also for the notebook. You can see it gets bigger. You can see the people. I hope you liked it. It would really help if you subscribe and comment on what you think about this video. I will try to make new videos every week if I can. Hope to see you on the next video, and bye.